Welcome back to my second YouTube video. This is going to be a voiceover on my full body workout from today, so from the 19th of June. And I'm going to be talking about why I do this, why I do the exercise, what I look out for in the exercise, why my execution is the way it is. And I've also written the target musculature and also the reps, progress, and reps in reserve on the side, so you can see it for each exercise. I start by doing the shoulder press because my shoulders are a weak point. My whole body is a weak point basically, but they are weaker than the rest, and this is why I start with them to be as fresh as possible. Then I go over to lateral raises, of course, to isolate the side delts as good as possible. Here I don't really think about much because having an internal focus of attention can take away from pushing as hard as you can, and thus from maximal motor unit recruitment. So for example, as you can see here, my right arm does not come up as much as the left arm. I'm not really bothered about that. I don't really care about that. Then I go over to calcio shrugs. So I had been doing T-bar rows, but then I realized although this T-bar is descending, so it is hardest at the bottom, I was failing at the top where the rear delts do most of the work. So I was failing because of my rear delts and not because of my traps. And my traps are a big weak point compared to my lats, which are far greater developed. So I isolate them by doing calcio shrugs. On the second set, the last rep I wouldn't count. You're going to see it wasn't clean enough for me to count it, so I didn't. Then I go over to triceps extension single arm because it's much more comfortable, it's easier to set up, and also I can focus on my imbalances. And in my interpretation of the literature, the long head will be biased here because my shoulder is in anatomical position, and the long head probably has best leverage there, and thus will be trained better than the medial and lateral head. So yeah, that's all I can say about my the reasoning behind this exercise. So I do 2 sets each, just because. So I would do single sets for more muscle regions to bias more muscle fibers, but there isn't really another exercise you can do for the triceps, or I can do for the triceps, that will hit the long heads as good as this one, and will give me a benefit to doing a single set and hitting slightly different muscle fibers. That's why I do 2 sets of these. My rep range is normally between 5 to 8, but since I do 3 sets for triceps and also for the elbow flexors, for example, I would like to keep it a little bit lower, but that's not that big of a deal. I maybe overwent with the reps a bit, just because so I would ideally like to do like 5 to 6 reps, because the triceps are a muscle that recover more slowly than other ones. But I changed the task. I put the cable pulley one setting below, so that my shoulder does not come up during the eccentric, which I noticed the last time and which I didn't like. So that's why I changed the task, and progress is not trackable. So I can't check progress because of that too. So yeah, I'm really happy with my execution here, and I don't think that you could do anything much better, and there's not much to improve here. So yeah, overall I'm really happy with my execution, and also with the feeling of this exercise. No pain or something else whatsoever. Then I go over to the hammer curls. I'm staying in the top half range of motion, and since I'm in a neutral grip, I will still train all of the elbow flexors, but I will have brachioradialis bias. That's the muscle you can see there on my, like, poking through on my elbow. And yeah, so I do 1 set of this on the cable. I had like 1 to 2 reps in reserve probably, so maybe I gained 1 rep in reserve, but going for those last ones wouldn't give me any huge benefit, so I didn't go for them. Then I go over to Y raises here. So why another shoulder exercise? As I said, single sets for more muscle, single sets of different exercises to be able to hit more muscle fibers, and thus make more muscle fibers grow. That's what I do. I start with my left side because it's weaker. Then I rest about 1 minute and 30 seconds, and go to my right side. I also did that with the single arm extensions, by the way, just enough for me to be able to fully go at it again. So yeah, this exercise is kinda unique, so to say, because it also hits the lower traps and the side delts, of course. And then for as my second triceps exercise, I do overhead extensions. In my interpretation of the literature, this will bias the medial and lateral head, and it is sort of confirmed by the fact that I can lift about 20 to 25% less on my overhead extensions than on my push downs or normal extensions, so to say. And yes, here's it's the still it's the same thing. I start with my weaker side, which is the left one. Then I go to my right side. I increased weight here, and I only got 4 reps, but 4 reps is actually not that big of a deal because you still have high amounts of motor unit recruitment from the very first rep. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. And as I'm also training every other day, there's no real harm in doing 4 reps with good technique. Then I go over to preacher curls, and this will also hit all elbow flexors, but with a slight biceps bias as I'm supinated, so my palms are facing upward, and this machine is descending, so it's harder at the bottom, which lines up perfectly with the biceps length tension relationship. So the first set was 4 reps with 1 rep in reserve. Then I lowered the weight and went to 40 kilograms, and I did 5 reps with 1 rep in reserve. Again, not grinding, not taking those grinder reps, as the elbow flexors have a higher proportion of type 2 fibers, and also as they are smaller muscle, they also have a high voluntary activation and thus will be damaged more easily. Then I go over to lats, one of my strong points, and I do this lat pull down machine to potentially bias the lower lats. Yes, I do believe that you can bias different regions of the lats. How significant will this be? I don't know. I don't really care. I just do it. I just perform both physiological main functions of the lats, which is shoulder adduction, which I did here. Then I go over to this chest press machine. Because of the arm path, I have a little bit more upper chest than in a usual flat press. But something I want to change is this, what you see right there. So adjusting my stance or me lying, so to say, during the set. That shouldn't happen. You should be fully locked in before the set and should only focus on moving the weight. But what can you do? It happened. I was uncomfortable, so I had to do that. And then this is my second lat exercise, and also rear delts, of course, because the rear delts are heavily involved in shoulder extension, which I'm performing here, which is the second physiological main function of the lats. So bringing the upper arm towards the body from the front. Again, I start with my right side and then I go over to my left side because my left side is stronger. And I also increased weight here because it was there and I was able to. So yeah, as you can see here, this machine is descending, which also lines perfectly up with the length tension relationship of the lats. Then I go over to my second to last exercise for my upper body, which is butterfly, and I reset my form here. Last time or the last few times, I had too much elbow flexion, elbow bend at the front, and was heavily involving the bicep, which I wanted to avoid. So I did a little form reset, and I'm much more happy with my form as it was today. Then for my last exercise, I do a rear delt fly to isolate the rear delts, of course. And as you can see here, I would say I'm doing a pretty good job of keeping the traps out of the movement and only moving with my rear delts. But I will leave that up to you. Then I go over to my lower, my lower part of my lower body part of the workout. I start with the leg curls here, and I've gone back to dead stopping these because I find it easier to standardize and also more comfortable. And as this machine is super ascending, you cannot grind the rep, and which is why I standardized my range of motion to about 90 degrees of knee flexion. Once I can't get that anymore, I still count the rep, but I end the set there. Then I go over to my leg extensions, as you can see here. But I think I made a tiny mistake here because my performance in my first and second set were like almost identical, which means that I might have messed up my warm up for the first set. Although I didn't do anything wrong and particularly different, I did a warm up rep with 90% of my working weight. So I don't know what went wrong there. I will have to look out for that the next time. So 2 sets of that, and then I go over to single leg calf raises or presses, whatever you want to call them. I stay in the bottom half of the range of motion because the gastrocnemius, the bigger one of the two calf muscles, grows better there. I keep a straight knee because otherwise the gastrocnemius wouldn't grow as good as it does here, because it is biarticular, so it also has it also plays a role in knee flexion, in the first degrees of knee flexion, which I did on the seated leg curl earlier. So in the beginning of the range of motion, so you want to keep your knee as straight as possible. So yeah, I start with my right side again, of course, because it's weaker. Then I go to my left side. So I said it was weaker, but when I look back and I realized that my left side is actually weaker, so it wouldn't make that much of a difference, I guess. I tend to rest between 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 30 seconds between these sets, just enough for sinus fatigue to dissipate and me being able to catch my breath and being able to perform at the highest level I can. So yeah, this is like around this is towards the end of my workout. I do 2 sets because there's not really another calf exercise I can do where I would get the benefit of doing single sets and biasing more muscle fibers. So I just do 2 sets of these. And as you can see here, I really care about my technique and my execution because that is the most important thing. And I'm not trying to rush progress or force progress because that's not something you can do. Progressive overload is just that you can express that you've gotten stronger, and you don't get stronger because you progressively overload, but you are able to progressively overload because you've gotten stronger and the strength adaptations have taken place. Then I go over to my two favorite exercises, which is the SLDL first of all. So hip extension, target the hamstrings, glutes, and adductor magnus. So 5 reps with 115 kilograms, 0 reps in reserve. Then I go over to my favorite exercise, which is the hack squat. My progress here was actually a little bit suspicious in the way that I didn't expect it to be this great. I almost added like 1.5 reps. I don't know how or why, but I'll take it, of course. And as you can see here, everything is controlled. No rushing, no bouncing out of the bottom. I stop for a second at the bottom and then fully extend my knees. I lock them out because you don't have to worry about that. Your knees are there to lock out. Then for my last 3 exercises, I have the adductor machine, of course, to train my adductors. Not much else to say here. Just maybe I could add that I really try to keep my hips where they are and not go forward while doing the movement to not gain better leverage and make the task so moving the weight easier for me. So yeah, I didn't progress on this one. Then I go to abductors. I increased weight here because I had hit 8 reps yesterday. I mean the day before, so two days before, so last session, and I increased the weight, so 5 reps here again. Again, this machine is super ascending, so you cannot really grind the rep, which is why I set a limit for range of motion that I have to reach at least, and that was the case on the last rep. Then of course my last exercise, which is crunches. I reset my form here a bit, so progress is not trackable. So all in all, it was a great session. It was a great workout. I'm pumped to go again in 2 days, inshallah. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and see you next time.